Hey, and welcome to the Reset Podcast. Everything you need to know that your therapist probably never told you. Researched by experts, real-life experiences. This is Reset.
Hey, what's up? We are the Reset Group. Joe and Kristen here. We're so excited to be with you today and have another episode. Today, we're going to talk about performance anxiety.
Yeah, and I think this is important. Maybe people to hear. This is where we started the Reset Group, was working with athletes who were struggling to perform at high levels, or they were struggling to even get out in the field. You know, specifically when we were working with some athletes in the NFL where they were struggling to maintain a sense of excellence on the field, and there's some mental blocks there. And I think for a lot of our athletes that we work with, I would probably say performance anxiety is the number one thing that we deal with. I would like to say, too, as we expand on this as well, meaning it's not just with athletes. The stuff we're talking about today can be used for test anxiety, for students or for teenagers or for kids, or even for business leaders who have to do presentations where they get really nervous. And I know during COVID, we saw a lot of that. Like a lot of people felt uncomfortable, like over Zoom or doing presentations over, on the internet. And so the tools we're talking about today can really be used for anything you feel like is an area of anxiety for performance. And to be clear, there is a certain part of anxiety for performances that's actually healthy.
Yes.
And there's a healthy part of like some anticipation anxiety, getting the butterflies beforehand.
It's more of an excitement anxiety.
Right. And well, for some people, they're not excited at all. Maybe they're scared or afraid. But what happens is that anxiety basically says it's time to go. It's time to prep. It's time to get our mind, directed and focused on what we need to do. So we're going to say is that there's some anxiety that's actually considered productive, healthy, but then it crosses over.
Yeah.
And it crosses over to performance anxiety where per se maybe you perform better in practice than you do in the game, or you maybe perform better practicing your lines than you do maybe on stage.
Can I bring up something awkward and maybe TMI?
Wow.
But every single time, if you didn't all know that, I was a theater major in college. I'm a voice actor, so I've been in the arts for a long time, and every single time before I would perform, I called it the PPs, the performance P. Like I felt like I had to go pee so bad. And then sometimes if it was like a huge show and we were performing somewhere big, the PPs were turned into performance poo. TMI, because you're excited, you're nervous, so your stomach, like your whole body actually reacts to this anxiety or excitement or nervousness. So these tools also will help you, still feel the excitement and maybe some nerves, but to feel like you're walking into it with confidence.
We may need to have a warning in front of this podcast episode for people who just need to, your language.
Yeah. It's not clean anymore.
No.
You can't say this is
not
clean.
kid-friendly from this point on.
I can cut it out.
Yeah, well, editing, thank God. But you're actually on something, which is a lot of athletes, before they had to perform, right, play a game, they have to use the restroom. But this is the body getting ready for war in so many ways. And what happens is your cerebellum, right, and your brain has to do a lot with your athleticism and just muscle memory, things like that, right? But when it gets flooded with cortisol, stress hormones, right, what it does is it's basically telling the body like, hey, whatever's in our stomach, we got to get out of it, because the blood needs to go to other areas, our legs, our arms, our shoulders, to perform at a high level for the next 3 hours, right? And so it is very common, and in many ways I would say it's very good when the body says, okay, let's clean out. If it's you call it PPs. And so that's common. That's normal. And that's why I want to say some of this it's very normal and it's fine and it's good, but then it gets to that level where it starts becoming a distraction.
Yes, I was just going to say it actually interferes with your performance.
Right. I mean, we've had gymnasts that couldn't get out and perform as young as age 9 or 10 because of it. We've had football players who couldn't leave their dorms because of so much anxiety built up. They can't even go out to even practice. We've had people who before they go out on, out there on and perform, if it's on stage, maybe they just, then there's vomiting and they get blank in their mind. They don't know what to do or what to say. That's the level we realize, okay, we got to insert some strategies. We got to insert some tools. And really a lot of this, I think it comes from the fact is, especially for athletes, is their bodies are just overworked and their mind is underdeveloped. And I think we put so much emphasis on strength and so much emphasis on the physical practices that we don't put enough effort and energy into the mental part of the game and the emotional part of the game. And what happens is when you overwork the body, underdevelop the mind, at a certain point, pressure then is going to win. And the pressure, the performance or pressure of the game is going to win. And that's just where you see a lot of coaches, and especially at the younger levels now, where they're starting to really use, especially like club teams and things like that, they're starting to really use some mental tools or mental coaches to help prepare the team and to help prepare them for games and things like that.
Well, and you always say where the mind is, the body goes, and thinking shapes behavior, right?
100%. I think those two mantras we talk about a lot with our athletes. So if you think about worry, anxiety, failure, then you're telling your body we're going to fail.
Yeah.
And you're basically telling your body to go out there and fail. If we're thinking about successes, thinking about the way that we want to perform and how the outcome we want to be, then your body's going to approach that pathway. Your thinking basically puts your body on a pathway, right? Mm-hmm. And we got to recognize that's very, powerful, and that we actually have control of that. And we need to recognize is that if it's the battle between the ears have to be won.
Yes. And
you can't think of two things at once. And so what do you want to think about when it comes to you as a performer? Or in this case, a lot of times we talk about is, what is your relationship with your performance self, right? And is it going to be one where you're going to rev up anxiety and fear? Or is it going to be one where you actually pursue and start telling yourself how it's going to be, how it will be, and how it should be?
Yes.
And you go after it, right?
Well, and it's interesting because when you think of performance, you think the final. I was just thinking as you were talking, so as an actor, all these months, all this time, we've poured into refining our characters, memorizing our lines, showing up, doing the warm-ups beforehand. Those are the things to remember, right? Like, I have prepared. I have taken the time to take this seriously. So as an athlete, they're thinking the same things, right? I've worked out. I've gotten strength from, lifting weights. I've been great in practice. Those are the things to be thinking about before you step in, right? Or you have a presentation at your in your business, to reassure yourself, like, I've worked on this. I've done the best I can. Now I got to let go and just go on in there.
Well, and you're not alone because, I was thinking about, I think it's 2018 when we started doing all these athlete workshops in the summertime. And we actually asked 712 high school and college age athletes, what is your number one distraction in your mind that just keeps you from focusing or reaching your goal or gaining that potential you always want? And by far the number one answer was fear or anxiety. And we just combine those both, like fear and anxiety, right? Mm-hmm. Oddly enough, a little side note, the second answer was mom and dad, right? So, maybe that coincides in some way. I mean, that's a different talk altogether about how to, parent athletes and be their greatest asset, right? Or parents be the greatest asset. But I just think the fact is if it happens in the high school and let's say even the level of college, we know then that relationship to our performance will then carry on into our adulthood or early adulthood if we don't learn to, practice some certain strategies and tools for us to overcome that. And so,
yeah, can you give us some tools?
Yeah, I was going to say that, and a lot of stuff we're going to talk about today. We actually have a great, I don't know, we call them infographics. Is that the popular word for it?
Sure.
And that you feel like, look, once again, I wish I was taking notes, but Joe, I'm driving or I'm walking, I can't do that. All the stuff we're going to talk about today it's on the website. Right.
We got your back.
We got your back. But we're going to go a little detail with it. And the first thing we talk about specifically with athletes or anyone that in performance is that focus and choose your posture. And you're thinking, what does that even mean? Well, we have to pick things that we have control of right away. So feeling anxiety, fix your posture right away. shoulders back, chest out, heads up, right? And even if, let's say you're taking a test and you're getting anxious as you're taking a test, like SAT or ACT, fix your posture in your chair and go upright. Is you're an athlete, let's say that you threw an interception, or the fact is you don't, you're feeling insecure on the sidelines, fix your posture right away. And we know this works. Yeah,
I was just going to say, why does this work, Jay?
Well, we know it works because Harvard and Princeton both did body language testing when it comes to the brain, and recognizing that when we have certain posture, right, that it actually releases serotonin, and our brain makes us feel better, gives us confidence, right? Here's the other part of it. It actually makes other people look at us and feel inferior. So it gives us a competitive edge. And so at Princeton, they talk about something called the Superman pose, right? Where you put your arms against on your waist, right? And you kind of put your elbows back a little bit, and you put their chest out, head up, right? And that right there will release a certain amount of neurotransmitters to make you feel better.
I've seen pictures of you with that pose.
I know. It's my favorite
pose. You took that information to heart. Proud of you.
I do. And let me tell you, my athletes tell you this too. There's no more awkward feeling than the Superman pose. You feel vulnerable, right?
Which is just counterintuitive that you feel vulnerable, but you're actually showing.
It's just not normal. But you recognize that when you choose the right posture, that yes, you're in control of it, right? And it helps. What happens is 4 or 5 minutes into that, there's just going to be this biological change. We're going to feel more confident, right? That you're going to feel more, possibly even joyful, smiling, things like that, right? Which is huge when it comes to feeling anxiety.
Well, and I think that's what rubs off on people. Confidence and the joy that is exuding because of the serotonin. You had said it can make people feel inferior, and that gives you, this competitive edge. I also just want to touch on that real quick. I personally don't want people to be inferior of me. I want my confidence to rub off, not like them to feel intimidated by me. But I think what you meant was people might feel inferior or intimidated because they're like, wow, that person is holding themselves so well. To look at it more as a positive way of, I wish I want to hold myself like them. I want to feel like I'm comfortable in my body, that I'm confident in who I am.
When you think about when it comes to sports specifically, there's nothing wrong to make the other team feel like, man, that team looks good. Mm-hmm. Right? I think about baseball. In baseball, you have this thing called the pregame, right? Where you go out there and you do ground balls, fly balls. They call it the pregame, and the other team watches you. And man, when your opponent has a great pregame, it gets in your head a little bit. It's like, this team's good. This team's looking good, right? And so that has that same kind of component when it comes to the right posture. Think about it with social anxiety. What do we tell clients with social anxiety? Well, fix your posture right away. So if you are going to a party, or if you're going to attend some type of meet and greet and you're anxious about it, the first thing you could do when you walk in is fix your posture. Because what we found out is that when you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed, your posture actually starts reflecting your emotions. Mm-hmm. So you get the rounded shoulders, you slump over. And
eye contact even.
Eye contact goes down, you avoid it. And so when you're able to say, in spite of how I feel, I'm going to focus and control my posture, that is something instantly that we all can do.
That's great.
The second thing here is the aspect of being process-oriented versus being result-oriented. Meaning, a lot of performance anxiety comes back to the end result, right? I'm focusing on my stats. I'm focusing on the scoreboard. I'm focusing on how well am I doing, right? Versus focusing on what? The process that you're a part of, or the system that maybe coach created for you. And so that could play out in different ways, right? So for example, let's say with baseball, it's a matter of, okay, we're going to play, we're going to play for each pitch. The pitch that we're on right now, we're going to focus on what we need to do as an offensive or defensive player. We're going to bunt the ball down, move the player over, or something like that. Whatever the system, the process you're working right now, that's what we're going to zone in on and focus on. We're not going to look at the scoreboard. We're not going to look at what the other team is doing. We're going to focus on ourselves, doing what we practice to do in the game, and focus on that one throw, that one pitch, that one hit, the next serve, right? Whatever we're doing, we're going to focus on that. And the key part about that is when you get your mind off of scores results, stats, right, is you stop trying hard. And a lot of people with performance anxiety over try. And when you over try is when you actually make mistakes. It's when you actually go outside of what you've been training to do. Because when you're practicing, you usually don't over try. You just go through the motion of doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? And when anxiety comes on, we get hyper focused on ourselves. So then we over try to overcompensate for the stress or the anxiety of it. And we don't want that to happen, especially in competition. And so we go back to kind of we talked about before is we have to try less, trust more of how we practice, trust my coaches, trust the system or the process that we're working on, trust more of my, if it's my talent or who I am just as an individual, right? That is what we need to do.
This is the part of our show where we talk about our opinions on the things that we observe. Observe and then respond, don't worry, you cannot be wrong. It's all about the way that your mind works. Observation feedback.
I just got to tell you, we love observing things. That's why this is so fun for us. So when we go to our children's sporting events, it's one of the best places to observe things. So we're going to be talking about our daughter's soccer games.
Specifically, parents, what is going on with the different parents at soccer games? So we know we have the different characters. So we have the people who just are quiet, right? Mm-hmm. And they just observe. They just watch. They don't really have a opinion about the game. Everything's good. They clap for everything. Even if the other team scores, they say good job to the other team. They just want everyone to just get along, right? But then we have the opposite of that. We have the parent that thinks that this is a major league soccer championship and they have money on the line. And by the way, these are 6-year-olds we're talking about. 6-year-olds. Half the kids, as we know, don't even play. They just follow the ball while that one person dominates. And you know what I'm talking about.
And you know what's funny is they've actually had to now, you know this if you're a parent and you go to any kind of sporting thing, especially with soccer though, I've noticed, is they have to put a disclaimer in there saying, please come and cheer only. We advise parents to come and participate and be excited with clapping. Do not coach from the sidelines. Do not tell your kid what to do. You can talk to your kid after the game. Let us coach and you watch. Because it's gotten to the point where it was so bad, where the poor kids couldn't even concentrate on the game or the coach. I grew up with a parental unit like that.
I was going to say, what an all-time low for society. We actually need these signs at our kids' games. But I thought about it. We kind of grew up with the opposite, right? Everyone was yelling, screaming.
Yeah, my dad got kicked off the field multiple times.
I could see that happening.
Yeah.
I could see that happening. And, it's just, it's funny because parents still don't care about that sign. But look, you know me.
Well, that's right. This new soccer field actually has a sign that says it. It also comes in the email when you sign, like when you get assigned a coach.
Well, right. But you know me where I can't keep my mouth shut sometimes.
It's true. You're more encouraging, though.
I'm more encouraging. I'm the one that says, go get him. I've taught my daughter that when she stops a ball from going to the goal, to say, get out of my kitchen. Right?
That's a pickleball phrase.
I know, but why not? We could use it anywhere. And so, it's just, it doesn't either. I think it's a great way to put it is this. I think youth sports squeezes people and the juice comes out. Mm-hmm. And we really see the true heart of a person in the parent. Yeah. Right. And, the sad part about this too is we talk about this a lot, like the referee, I think it's a referee. The referee is like 10 years old. I mean, the guy is like 11 years old, barely breaking puberty.
This is a great observation too. There's two different kind of refs. Is that where you're going to go with this?
Well, yeah, you have the referee that is, barely breaking puberty, never uses the whistle, doesn't tell the kids whose ball it is, and the parents can't stand it. They're always like, "Ref, do something!" Right? Okay. The poor guy. He's probably doing it for service hours for school. But then you got the other ref. We had the other ref, mm-hmm. where you had the other ref who's like now 12 or 13, The whistle's blowing everywhere.
Whistle's blowing. They're about to do a, throw in, and their toe barely goes over the line. He blows the whistle.
Oh, man.
There's just certain things when they're 6, like, just let it go,
Well, but he can't, and that's why it's so funny to watch. You see where this kid's going to be at in 20 years as an adult.
Probably a lawyer. There's no grayscale. It's black and white.
Or pulling you over as a police officer.
This is true.
Right? Like he's the justice kid. Like,
Yes.
no, if the rule is this, we're going to,
Yeah.
like, I just want the game to go, bud. Like, we got to get the flow of this going, but it's just, there's a lot going on in that soccer game.
Right. So something that we have learned as parents, Joe had done some research and reading years ago. And gosh, tell everybody what you had learned about how we as parents can encourage our kids on and off the field.
Well, and they did a study, and they asked college athletes, basically, what would help you growing up, what your parents said before, like, practice or a game, like on the way there, right? And then also, like, afterwards. And so what they found out, asking these, really think about, like, overachieving athletes to be able to play at that level, is they've said, before a competition, I loved it when mom and dad said, have fun, play hard, and I love you.
3 easy things.
Have fun, play hard, and I love you. And then after the game, right, where we all want to give in our coach's corner and ask you, why did you not hit that ball, or whatever it may be, right?
And that research has said that is the least receptive time a child has to get your input or advice.
Well, you think about this. There's reasons why you have coaches. You be the parent. You need to stay being the parent and let the coaches do their job. Let your child be mentored by other coaches. They'll figure it out. They will, right? And so the kid needs for you to just be the parent. They don't want you to be the critiquing coach, right?
Yes.
And so then after the competition, the athletes reported this. They want to hear this from their parents, which is, did you have fun? I'm proud of you. And guess what? I love you. But it even gets better is then they ask the athletes, like, what is the one thing you wish you were heard more from your parents, or that you did hear that's ultimately like what that, like, if they could say one thing
That some of the athletes were saying that fueled them, that actually gave them joy to keep playing.
Yeah,
This is it.
right, is I love to watch you play. And I know for us, and we use our son as an example because he was, he didn't kick one ball for 2 years in soccer at all. Was even though he just sat there or stood in the middle of the field, never even went after a ball, looked down,
Ran away from the ball.
Yeah, he was successful at that as well. That afterwards we would get in that minivan and we'd say, bud, we love to watch you play. We love to watch, and we said, and he'd be shocked at times. He'd be like, "What do you mean?" And we'd be like, "We love to watch you play." And we really stuck true to this, even with our daughter too, who's more of the, I don't know, competitor, aggressor.
I struggled more. I mean, it was very embarrassing too. And you were really good at just telling me to let it go, because he would run off the field. He'd hide under my chair. I mean, it was a disaster. Or he would refuse to go back on once he had like a break. He wouldn't go back on the field. And I'm just thinking, everyone's watching me. Everybody's judging me. Just stay calm. Just keep encouraging and know that your kid just might not be a soccer player.
You're embarrassed. How about during that time, I was doing work with the Cowboys and working with high-powered athletes and get them motivated and get them mentally right. And my Saturdays were spent with my kid where there was nothing in my toolbox that I could use to get him mentally motivated. Now, then again, he's 6 years old, but mentally motivated to even be part of a team, participate, or capable. I mean, people
were calm.
I was
really
calm.
Good about
I
just
was calm.
smiling and being calm.
And the coach is just looking at us thinking, you have to have a sports psychologist for this kid. He lives with one. And so it was humbling for us. It was humbling.
It really was, though.
We also have the best part. We took videos and to send him to the grandparents of him playing, which is just him standing on the field doing nothing. But we thought, it'd be a great video one day to put into his, we'll somehow we'll throw that into his wedding slideshow or whatever it is.
Perfect. So we hope that you're encouraged by that and that you also enjoy observing people at sporting events.
Now back to the show.
So those first two strategies, once again, goes to the fact that you have control of them. You have control of focusing on the process and the end result. You have the focus of course, your posture. And the third one here that we tell a lot of our players to do is you have to have a plan and practice self-talk strategy, meaning the narrative in your mind needs to be worked on.
Yeah.
And athletes always say, I do best when I don't think at all. I hear this a lot. I do best when I don't think at all. The reality of it, you're thinking about something. You might not know it because you're so mindful in the moment.
Mm-hmm. But muscle memory, instincts, those things take over.
Yeah, because your brain has two things. It has a high track and a low track mind, right? And so this is like little psychology 101 if you took it in college. So you have the high track and low track mind, which is very unconscious and conscious mind. The high track is the conscious mind. So for example, let's say I'm an outfielder, right, for baseball, and the ball's being hit to me, fly ball. My conscious mind, my high track mind says, I'm going to catch this ball. Like I need to catch it, right? The low track mind, the unconscious mind, comes in and it's recognizing how fast the ball is, how the ball is spinning left or right. Do I need to make it move, right? It's also telling me when do I step forward to catch the ball in the movement, right? For my moment to go forward, right? It's doing all this type of work. And so that's just your unconscious mind naturally working. And that's what happens with self-talk strategies. If you do it correctly, it's just happening without you knowing it. But if you're someone who is just naturally self-deprecating mentally, it's super negative, has a fear-based thought, like I don't want my parents to be in the stands, I don't want this ball to be hit to me, I don't want to mess up, I don't want all that kind of stuff, then you're recognizing then you're probably, your self-talk, right, is probably really getting inside your head, and it's not healthy because you're not being mindful of the game. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And so you need to invest and take time creating a style of thinking that shapes the behavior you want to desire. So define that behavior, like write down, like what is the behavior I want to do as an athlete or as an artist, whatever it may be, right? So write that down, and then all my self-talk evolves around that, right? So for example, we worked with a quarterback a couple of years ago who wanted to define the aspect of being a confident quarterback. And so all the self-talk has to do with what? Confidence, pumping yourself up, recognizing who you are as a confident quarterback. Confident quarterback, when they throw an interception, what do they say? I'll get the next one. I'm hungry for the next ball, right? If their wide receiver drops the ball that they threw to him, what does a confident quarterback say to that wide receiver? Hey, I got you. I'm going to throw it to you next time. Get open, right? There's a lot of, big part of the game is still available for us to play, and we got this, right? And so it evolves all around the aspect of what behavior do you want to get, and what is the self-talk that goes around it. So a little tidbit here is one thing we tell our athletes is can't, won't, and don't. It's got to be gone. Can't, won't, and don't is not interpreted by the brain. It's negative thinking. So for example, let's say I'm shooting a free throw and I say I can't miss this free throw. The brain's going to interpret it as what? I will miss this free throw, right? Or I can't, I can't throw an interception here. The brain says I will then throw an interception. And so everything that we want to say, it has to do the aspect of telling yourself what you want it to be. And by doing that, we keep it simple. Use your I am and your I will statements. I am going to make this free throw. I will make this free throw and feel good afterwards. I am going to make this next play and going to make sure that we throw a touchdown right here. So your I am and your I will statements is an easy way to just say, okay, my self-talk needs to be around the two words or the two sentences, I am, I will, and focus on telling myself what I need to accomplish, what I need to do. And most athletes who just have natural, healthy mindset and are very mindful, they do that all the time. They're just constantly having that inner coach coach them up.
Well, and the more you practice it, if it's not natural for you, the more it's just going to show up.
Right. And I think what we find out too is most likely if you have some performance anxiety outside of that role that we're talking about, they probably have it elsewhere. Maybe when it comes to relationships, maybe when it comes to just how they talk about themselves throughout the day, or it gets seen maybe when it comes to social situations, or when it comes to work, or when it comes to school. that usually we don't see just there. We see an anxious brain that has anxiety in performance. We usually see it elsewhere as well. And so this is something that everyone can use, right? And to develop it is so important. And this is something we don't talk about with our own kids. Like, I think as now we have younger kids, right? And something I think from day one they started talking, we're trying to formulate their self-talk with their outward talk and things like that, right? And so this is when it's good for coaches when they hear an athlete being negative, like I say in the dugout and sidelines, is they need to reframe it. And they need to attack that in a healthy way and say, no, we need to start saying this. We need to start believing in ourselves. We need to start saying the I am and I will statements.
Yes.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us. For more information and other resources, visit us at theresetgroup.com and make sure to follow us at The Reset Group on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.